Hey everyone, welcome back. Going back to what was that, about November or so of 2024? We did this. I did this lithium iron phosphate battery upgrade on this 1990 Easy Go golf cart, and the owner was pleased with the work that was done to it and with the performance of the batteries and so forth. And then he heard somewhere along the way that adding an inverter to a golf cart could be a pretty cool way to go, especially since we're in right in Hurricane Central down here on the Gulf Coast, or not very far from the Gulf Coast. And so there's, in addition to regular thunderstorms and tornadoes and such, we also get hurricanes from time to time, which leads to power outages and so forth. So um, portable power generators, I've heard of those. I think you've heard of those. And gas powered and propane powered generators, which I also have some of those, um, are all viable solutions to providing, keeping refrigerators cold, keeping an air conditioner running maybe, um, keeping your freezer, keeping frozen things frozen, and most importantly, keeping your beer cold. So anyway, he asked that I consider adding an inverter to his cart, which I have now done. So I want to start at the back here and show you the business end of it, the inverter itself, and some of the installation process that I did, uh, bits and pieces, and we'll work through there. And then I'll test it with a couple of things. I got a heavy duty vacuum cleaner, I got an air compressor that's going to start up there, and we'll see what else I can come up with. So anyway, let's go. All right, we're at back into the cart here, and a couple of things you'll see right off. Of course, the I've got it propped up here, the inverter. On the Easy Go in the earlier models, there's quite a open space above the motor, and there's just a metal shield that goes over the top. So what we have here is a 3,000 watt. It takes 36 volt input, which is what the battery cart does. The traction pack, I guess you call it, the batteries produce. Takes 36 volts in, puts 120 volts house current out, and I've got it wired. There's a down here. There's an outlet that just a single heavy duty outlet rated for 20 amps. And then up front, I'll show you when we get that far. I've got a wired. Um, there's a multiple outlet up front. So for somewhat smaller loads, each of those outlets are rated for 15 amps each. So of course, we're not going to run a bunch of things at once on this, but it does. It has so far handled everything I've thrown at it as far as vacuum cleaners and air compressors and such. So we'll take a look at that. We'll get a little bit closer look here at these items, and then in a little bit I'll throw a shot in here of this thing when it's down, secured down, and so you can tell it's protected from the weather and so forth. On this end, there's I got plenty of cable here, and when I secure this, when I fasten this down where it belongs, I have a means underneath here to pull the slack out of it, so we don't have any hanging down that would risk getting caught on anything as we drive over it, that kind of thing. On this end, we've got the wires coming out of I mean, there's outlets here and a small display, battery display, and so it keeps track of the battery power being supplied, and also the AC volts out. Which, when this is down, of course, and secured in place, there's no way he's ever going to see this. So we'll show you how we're going to keep track of that here in a little bit. But anyway, this is just hardwired out. I've got some, they call these lever nut connectors or something like that. They're Wago knockoffs. And one of them comes down here and goes to this outlet, which is got the waterproof, I should say, probably water resistant cover on there, but it's pretty substantial. Anyway, comes down here, and then also I got 14 gauge running up under the cart and then up to the front. We'll take a look at that here in a minute. And again, I'll throw a shot maybe right about here is what this looks like when it's secured in place. The changes that I made to the internals here is all of the battery cables have been replaced. They were all 6 gauge before. They're all 2 gauge now, basically heavy duty welding cable, because the chance of running a substantially higher current exists. So anyway, we got all new battery cables, and then the 2 cables. There are 2 obviously that run back here to the inverter itself. There is a shunt that's going to for the battery monitor meter that I'll show you in a little bit. That's measured here. It's on the negative side. This is the negative end of the traction pack. And I added a plus and a minus bus bar to make all of the connections. Otherwise, there would have been just multiple things connected to that terminal and multiple connected to this, and there's really no reason for that when you can run one wire down. These wires, this one and this one, are simply through the battery charger that I had previously installed. So it still functions normally, and then the only other connection is obviously the main battery cables, with the addition of the shunt in series with the negative side. And that was kind of about it. Now everything that needs to connect to the plus side goes to the positive bus bar. Same with the negative. I did need to add. I changed this out from a 2 connection to a 3 connection so that I could add the positive wire that will go to the battery meter. And again, I'll show you that in just a minute. But let's take a look at the other AC outlet. Up front, the cable runs up underneath, and it's all tie wrapped or zip tied up so that it won't catch on anything. I have provided a GFCI adapter that will plug into any of these things that's going to be in use, and I'm going to recommend to the owner that he have multiple of these so that everything is adequately protected. But as far as wiring in a GFCI that covers the whole thing would have been pretty involved and a lot more circuitry and things. So this will do what needs to be done as far as maintaining safety. This is the multiple outlet, and it's got its own on-off switch here. When the inverter is on, you can turn it on. I've got it switched to on now, so that when we start the inverter up here in a little bit, this will come on. It has a couple of USB-A and a USB-C output on here, which kind of goes along with what I had done before up here on the front panel. But anyway, when they have lighter loads that needs to be plugged in, whatever that may be, they can just lay this out here, plug it in, and set it back in here. But it needs to be back here out of the rain. I mean, this is called a weatherproof. I would refer to it as a weather resistant multiple outlet, but I wouldn't want to just set it in open rain or anything. So yeah, it can sit right back in here and it'll be perfectly protected. And lastly, I had provided previously a battery monitor, and the owner was okay with it, but he said it wasn't providing him with the information that he really wanted to see. I left it in place because it still works fine. It's great for just a casual glance at it to make sure things are good. But I designed and 3D printed a case for this. Again, I don't know what the IP rating would be on this. This is a PZEM 015, not the 51 I talked about in previous videos, but it's a PZEM 015 battery monitor, and I'll show you with it turned on here shortly. But I just mounted, I built the case, or 3D printed the case, and then mounted it on the front here, and this is back in here. You can't really see them, but there's little drain holes down here that'll keep water from building up around it, so should protect it from the rain. Let me power it up here and we'll take a look at it. Okay, first of all, you can see that the original battery monitor that I put in here for him still still functions normally. It just turning the key on. I don't have a key to it, so I just got to jump across the switch. So anyway, you can see it's still working. And then when we come in here, yes, kind of a little bit of glare there, but you can see it provides a lot more information. You got battery condition, and it'll show you how much power is being used out of the battery. Of course, with any battery, as you're using it, there's going to be sag. In other words, it's going to say it's going from 100% down to maybe 60% while it's in use. But as soon as you take the power away, as soon as you stop using the current, it'll come back up to its actual value. So anyway, it'll be a lot better, giving a lot more information as far as what's being used for power. So let's. Oh, the other thing I added, forgot to mention. Uh, the owner's probably at some point going to uh, add a solar charge station so he can charge us off solar instead of spending money on electricity. So I also added a power pole style port right here on the front, and that takes this style of connector. And so when he gets a charge station or whatever, we'll set him up with a cable that'll work here, and he'll just come in and be able to plug right into that. Um, and that goes through some 10 gauge wire and just goes down. It goes through a 50 amp fuse here and goes down and supplies the positive bus bar, and then the negative simply goes down to the negative bus bar. So it essentially has a 36 volt outlet here, but also a charge port for solar when he's ready to do that. And let's see, the other thing I did when I mentioned the battery cable change out, I also added, this is a 150 amp circuit breaker right here. So it comes off positive and goes down here and it goes to the breaker first. So the very first thing it encounters is a circuit breaker, and then that comes down here and feeds the positive bus bar. So that's where we're at. Let's fire this. And oh, the inverter itself, I've got this style of turning it master on off switch. So hold on. I installed it down here. It's under the forward reverse shifter. It's right down here. And I made it so that it couldn't accidentally be turned on. It's something you gotta want to do. So you insert the key and turn it on that way. It is noisy. It's a little bit loud. This is just as a self-test when it comes on. And again, this will, I can get down here where you can actually read it. It gives you it tells you what the battery voltage is. In this case, it's reading like 40.2, and it's got 117 volts out. So let's, we got it powered up. Let's just try a couple of things here. Hold on. All right, I got you back on the tripod. So hopefully it'll reduce motion sickness. So what I've got here is I got my little kilowatt meter, and it's showing 120 volts, 119.9, whatever, and 60 hertz. This is plugged in down here to this outlet, and that of course is coming off the inverter. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to plug in the vacuum cleaner and show you that started. So an inductive load will start right up. Okay, I got this vacuum cleaner hooked up to it. I'll show you the meter when we start here. I'm going to I want to insert a picture of what the battery meter is telling us right this moment. All right, that was the vacuum cleaner, and now I got a little DeWalt air compressor. And we're going to fire that up, and we'll see what happens. Okay, we're done. It shut itself off, and obviously you can see the inverter still running. So we'll take another shot of the battery meter and see what shape the batteries are in after that. So there you have it. I'm just going to run down a little bit. What's the advantages of doing this? The whole thing came to, uh, let's say, less than $1,000. Prices are going to bounce around a little bit. Depends on what you get for an inverter. It depends on uh, whether you're running a 36 volt system or 48 volt as far as what you actually need for rated cables and that kind of stuff, what you need for fuses and circuit breakers and that kind of stuff. So it's going to bounce around a little bit. It'll be somewhere between, let's say, $600 and $1,000. It would fall into that range from the experience I've had with this. Let's see, so what can we do with a 3,000 watt inverter coming off of a 36 volt golf cart? Well, for lighter loads, like you could run a refrigerator, and it's normally going to be around 120 to 200 watts while it's running. Might surge up to 800 watts, which a 3,000 watt is. I mean, this has got a 6,000 watt surge rating, this particular inverter. So you could run a refrigerator for like 15 to 20, 22, 24 hours, somewhere in there. If he's running LED lights, you could have a bunch of those and some small fans. You could run those for well over 24 hours. If you have CPAP or other medical devices, it's going to run it all night long and probably for 2 or 3 nights if you needed to without any recharging. You can run, since it's a pure sine wave inverter, you could do your laptop, you can charge your phones, you can power up your modem and network devices so you can still have internet. You can run your television. It'll handle all that easily. If you wanted to use a coffee maker or a microwave, of course you'd want to use that briefly and not frequently. But a microwave, most microwaves going to hit around 1,000 watts, 1,100 watts, somewhere in there. Might surge a little higher than that. Might surge to 1,500 when it first starts up, but 3,000 is going to handle it just fine. This kind of inverter isn't really ideal for high surge appliances, but as you just saw, it ran a small air compressor just fine. It could run a small, like a 5,000 BTU air conditioner. It's not going to run it long, maybe about 4 hours, but it would handle it. If you had any sustained use needs, power tools, like he's going to run a skill saw, a circular saw, or even a small table saw or something like that, it's going to run it just fine, but you wouldn't want to count on that lasting for hours and hours. And anything that exceeds, say, 2,500 watts, this is 3,000 watt inverter. Anything that's going to go over 2,500 watts for any length of time is going to create quite a bit of heat and could cause your batteries, the battery management system, to trip out, or the thermals in the inverter could trip out. So got to be a little careful with it. Just be mindful of what you're using and how much. If he's going to use this, I mean, you can use this for anything off-grid, mobile workstation, camping, boondocking, tailgating. You're going to have a get-together, a street party, or something like that. You could run your sound system off this, or power tools, small power tools, and get ready, building whatever you need to build for that street party. If you're into mobile ham radio, which I happen to be, you could run a ham radio off this setup for days. Transportation, of course, this still is 100% functional as a golf cart. Nothing's changed as far as the traction pack or its ability to move down the street. So nothing really new there. So it's still completely functional. The key considerations for something like this, battery drain, of course, at a full load of 3,000 watts, we're drawing about 83 amps out of our 36 volt batteries. And we've got a total of 300 amp hours. There's 3 100 amp hour batteries. So we've got a total of 300 amp hours total pack capability. So if we're running the full 3,000, everything it can handle, it's only going to run it for a couple hours. And, that's pretty realistic. Now, if you're only running like 300 or 400 watts, you're looking at 7, 8, maybe 10 hours. To recharge, we've got an onboard, we already have an onboard LiPo 4 charger. You just plug into the wall and it charges right back up. And now we've got a charge port that we could hook up an external battery charger if we need to. We can also, as long as it's putting out the right 40.2, 40 or 42 volts rather, whatever the 36 volt LiPo 4 pack takes. But also a solar or wind generator, some type of green energy could be plugged in there, and probably will be in this case, to recharge it. For safety, I showed you the GFCI that I bought just as an example of what needs to be used with this. I should mention that this is grounded. The inverter is grounded to the cart frame, so you don't have to worry about sitting on a cart and making contact with the ground and getting a shock or whatever. So I didn't show you that. We did add a solar input port. So assuming we build a solar charge station for this cart, it'll involve an MPPT charge controller and probably 400 to 600 watts of solar panels. So we do have the battery monitor on here to track the state of charge, and I'll throw one more shot of the battery because it's been a few minutes now since we stopped using power, and so I'll show you what the batteries have recovered to after, say, 20 minutes. The 36 volt outlet that I did put up there, again, is good for direct solar charging. You can use an external battery charger. You can run 36 volt tools or accessories like a water pump, light tower, or something like that. And then if you needed to, you could either top off another 36 volt cart, just run a cable between the two, or in this case, if it was too low to get home with or whatever, somebody else comes by with a 36 or 48 volt cart with a little extra circuitry, you could take a top off from another cart. And it also simplifies wiring if we later, if we decided to add like a fold out or a trailer mounted solar array, something like that. And I guess that's about it. With assuming we build a solar charge station, and I'm kind of leaning towards a 400 watt rated set of solar panels for the owner. You're talking about, assuming we get about 5 peak sun hours per day, we're getting about a little over 1.5 kilowatts per day of energy harvest. So that's more than enough to replenish 40 to 50% of the cart's usable energy. If you're only down to, say, 70% state of charge, you can recover on that 1.5 kilowatts. And if it's less than that, you might have to wait a couple of days for it to get fully recharged. But anyway, should be good to go. And as far as the solar goes, we're looking at, I don't know, if we're going to do portable or fixed. The logistics there is going to revolve around what he's got available for space to mount if we're going to do a ground mount or a roof mount setup. So anyway, that's where we're at. Just wanted to cover a few details on the thing. This is a one and done video. I'm not going to belabor it with multiple episodes, but anyway, that's what's on here, and I'll show you some pictures of it when it's all fully assembled back together and ready to go back to the owner. And I'll plug those in here. Thanks for watching.